He said the photo was gone. But I found it. Behind it was a lie my whole family kept hidden for decades. When I uncovered the truth, they turned on me. Now I know I was never really one of them. They say the past has a way of catching up to you, but nobody tells you how violently it hits when it finally does, how it doesn't knock politely at your door but crashes through it, splintering wood and memory at once. And for me it all began with a photograph, a simple old photo buried in a box in my mother's attic, tucked between yellowed letters and holiday cards no one cared about anymore, and if it hadn't slipped out and fallen at my feet that day I never would have known, I never would. VE asked the question that would destroy everything, because the man in that picture wasn't just someone from my father's past like I was told, he was someone who looked exactly like me, same jawline, same eyes, the same damn crooked smile I hated seeing in the mirror, and when I asked Mom about it she froze, just for a second, but long enough for me to catch it, that flicker of panic, of calculation, before she forced a smile and told me it was nothing, just an old family friend, someone Dad knew from high school, but the way she said it didn't sit right, not with how tightly she gripped the photo when she took it from me, not with how she locked the attic afterward like it held ghosts that might whisper the truth while we slept, and I tried to let it go, really I did, but something clawed at me, a feeling I couldn't shake, so I did what I shouldn't have done. I went to my uncle, Dad's brother, the one who always drank too much at Thanksgiving and said too little the rest of the year, and when I showed him the photo he went pale, his glass slipping slightly in his hand before he laughed, too loud, too fake, and said I was overthinking it, that family history was messy and best left alone, but that was when I knew, deep in my gut, that something was off, because when people lie like that, when they deflect with jokes and suddenly change the subject to football or politics or anything but what matters, they're hiding something, and I couldn't stop until I found out what it was, even if I had no idea how deep the rot really went. I started digging, not with a shovel but with questions, calls, old journals, even scanning newspaper archives down at the local library like some obsessed detective in a true crime show, and every thread I pulled led to another knot in the story, things that didn't add up, timelines that bent in strange ways, dates that contradicted what I'd always believed, and then one night I found a birth certificate mine but it wasn't the one I'd grown up seeing in the family photo albums. This one had a different hospital, a different county, and no father listed, just my mother's name and a series of numbers where his should be been, and I remember just sitting there staring at it in my car outside the county records office, my heart pounding so loud it sounded like footsteps in my head, and that's when I knew I couldn't trust anything they told me, not my mom, not my uncle, not even my father, no, especially not him. Because I remembered all the times he'd avoided eye contact when I asked about our family tree, how he'd brush me off or change the subject like it was too painful, too complicated, but now I knew it was just a lie too heavy for him to hold any longer, and I confronted my mom again, this time with the certificate in hand, and for a moment her whole face collapsed like a house losing its foundation, but then she caught herself, pulled it together, and whispered the name, Daniel Grant, she said. Your real father's name was Daniel Grant, and he was dangerous, a man she ran from when she found out she was pregnant, and the man I called Dad, he knew, he always knew, but agreed to raise me as his own to keep me safe, and I should ve felt something like gratitude or at least closure, but all I felt was heat boiling, suffocating rage because I'd been lied to my entire life, every word, every bedtime story, every proud look from the man who wasn't really my father now felt like a performance. A carefully rehearsed play to keep me in the dark, and the worst part was they had no intention of ever telling me, not even on their deathbeds, not unless I stumbled across that photo like I did, and I should ve stopped there, taken the truth for what it was, but something in me needed to see him, to know who Daniel Grant was and why my mom was so terrified of him, so I found him, living under a new name just 3 towns over, running a used car lot with a faded red awning and a crooked smile. Not unlike mine, and when I walked in, he looked up like he'd been expecting me his entire life. He didn't deny it, not for a second, just leaned back in his chair and said, "I always wondered when you'd come looking," and I remember my legs trembling, not out of fear but out of rage and something else I couldn't place, maybe confusion, maybe grief, and I asked him why he let her run, why he never came after me, and he laughed a cold, bitter sound like metal grinding against metal and said, "She didn't just run, she disappeared, changed names, moved across state lines, paid people off to erase her tracks, and I thought it was over, that you were gone too, but when I found out you were alive, I tried to reach out, but she made sure I couldn't, and I didn't know what to believe, not after all the lies I'd already been fed, and maybe he was lying too, maybe he was just another master manipulator spinning his version of the truth, but he showed me letters, dozens of them, returned unopened, addressed to my mom under her new name, sent over the years with photos and birthday cards and one old teddy bear still in its wrapper, and I felt something crack inside me, like glass under pressure, because for the first time I didn't know who the villain was anymore. Was it my mother, who hid me from a man she claimed was dangerous, or was it him, the man who sat there now with tears in his eyes and called me son? But then things got darker, much darker, when I went home that night and found the attic door wide open again, and inside, boxes had been moved, old papers gone, the photograph missing, and my mom sat on the floor crying, not because she was caught but because she knew it was over, the truth was out, and she said things I'll never forget, how Daniel wasn't just dangerous, he was a criminal, a con man, a man who once tried to sell me to a couple in another state for drug money, and she only got me back by threatening him with a kitchen knife and a 911 call, and maybe she de-exaggerated, maybe not, but the horror in her voice wasn't fake, and I believed her, I wanted to believe her, until my fake father, her husband, walked in, looked at me, and said, it wasn't her idea to hide the truth, it was mine, because I loved you like my own, and I couldn't let him ruin that, not again, and everything shattered right there, every bond, every lie, every illusion I had about who I was and where I came from, and in the months since I've tried to piece it back together, to understand who I am outside of all these broken truths, but sometimes at night I stare at that photo. Yes, I found a copy, hidden behind the insulation in the attic wall, and I wonder what my life would be been if I'd never seen it, if I'd just walked past that box like I was supposed to, and part of me wishes I had, because some truths don't set you free, they trap you, chain you to a past you never asked for and a name you never wanted, and now all I have are questions that can't be answered and a family that looks at me like I'm a stranger who stumbled into their lives by accident, because maybe that's all I ever was.